Here's what you need to know if you're looking to open up an Airbnb business in 2023, or if you're just curious to understand what's going on with the market. So first, I'm going to be covering in this video exactly what's been going on with the market, what we saw in 2020, 2021, and 2022, and what we're exactly seeing in 2023 and what we might be seeing in the future, as well as breaking down exactly what you need to do to create a successful Airbnb business. Now, I'm going to be covering what I call the 3 steps, which is the search, the find, and the experience. And those are the 3 steps to a successful Airbnb business that we'll be covering later in the video. So now let's talk about what happened to Airbnb in 2020 and why it boomed and why we're seeing such a slowdown today. So going into 2020, we obviously had COVID, which played a huge role in Airbnbs. People tended to not go on full-on vacations because they couldn't for a lot of places, so they were going on local staycations. So we saw a huge boom with Airbnb, and there was good and bad things that came from it. So first off, it did boom the market. A lot of people became wise to Airbnb. A lot of people started using Airbnb that weren't and haven't before, which did add a lot of value for the future to come, because a lot of people who might have been hesitant were forced to use Airbnb during COVID, and now they might be a lifelong user of it, which creates more customers for people who are hosts. Now, the disadvantage is that during that time, people were creating this false sense of how much they can profit from it because they kind of didn't realize that this is a very, very temporary thing because of COVID. Now that we're seeing in 2023 a massive slowdown. In fact, in major cities like New York, LA, and tons of other areas, there's a 50% drop in bookings year over year. And that's probably going to continue happening for a little while. And there are 2 things happening with that. The first is there is a ton of competition, right? So there's a ton of homes popping up because as people started to make so much money, they all stormed to social media telling everyone how amazing it is, look how easy it is. And that was true at the time, but it's just not true anymore. And we're starting to see all of those disadvantages come out now, because a lot of people who were making a lot of money during that time are not making as much now, and they're starting to lose those homes because it's not as lucrative. Now, the other reason is there's tons of competition, but at the same time, there is a lot less people booking because they're going overseas and doing real vacations because they've been prolonging those real vacations for so long, and they're not doing as many local staycations, which is why there are certain areas, let's say like overseas, that Airbnbs might still be doing well, but on local areas where people don't really travel more than a couple hours away to get there, they're not doing as good. And that's what we're seeing here in Los Angeles, what we're seeing in New York, and what we're seeing in a lot of other areas. Now, adding to those negatives, interest rates and home prices have significantly been up since 2020 and 2019. Now, early 2020, we saw home prices kind of steadily go up, but even now we're starting to see them still continue up very slowly, even though people were predicting that they were going to drop. Now, that coupled with really high interest rates are making a huge difference. So if you look at a home that might have costed you $5,000 a month in a mortgage, and you would have been making $10,000 a month because of Airbnb, we're now seeing a 50% drop in your booking, which means now you're making $5,000 a month, and the mortgage on that $5,000 a month house is now $8,000 a month, making it a not profitable business unless you're putting a ton of money down, which in that case, it's probably just not a good investment overall. The next big negative to Airbnb is city ordinances. So Palm Springs is a perfect example of how they implemented a law to actually limit how often you can book your Airbnb to a certain amount of times per year. Now that is happening across America. We're seeing some cities completely outlaw. Even some cities are putting permit systems in where you have to have a permit, and it's through like a lottery-based system. And it just depends. If you have the permit, you're making money. And if you don't, well, you don't have an Airbnb. And this is why it's really important to do research based on the city that you're trying to open up in. So if we look at Big Bear, this is a great example of why I chose Big Bear for my personal Airbnb, is that Big Bear naturally thrives off tourists. If they don't have the tourists, 99% of their businesses wouldn't succeed. But when we look at Palm Springs, it's a heavily retirement area where a lot of people permanently live here. And a lot of the people who come to Airbnb don't necessarily come here, get an Airbnb, and go out to the local shop. They necessarily like to stay on the property, swim in the pool, bake in the hot sun, and that's pretty much their entire trip. So a lot of the locals here don't necessarily benefit from Airbnb, and that's why they particularly outlawed it. So make sure to do research based on which city you're looking into to determine, does this city naturally thrive off these tourists, and without them, would they not succeed? Because if that's the case, they're far less likely to outlaw. And this is a great example of in Big Bear, there was something called Measure O last year where they tried to outlaw Airbnb or at least limit the amount of Airbnbs. And the locals overwhelmingly voted against it because they knew that if they didn't have Airbnbs, a lot of their businesses wouldn't succeed. So with all these negatives, is it even smart or is it even possible to profit on Airbnb in 2023? Well, the answer is yes. I'm actually building my Airbnb now, and I'm going to be talking about what steps I took and what I learned to make sure that my Airbnb is going to be successful. So to understand it, there's always enough people who are searching for a home in your area to make sure that you're 100% booked up all the time. Now, obviously it's unreasonable to be 100% booked up all the time, but if the potential is there, then it means there are steps you can take to make sure you get closer to being 100% booked up. So if we think about it in a mathematical equation, if there are 1,000 people searching for a home between June 10th and June 12th, and there are thousands of homes, you easily can book someone for that day, right? You have 1,000 chances that someone books your home. If there are 10,000 people looking for an Airbnb over the course of a year in your city, then 100% you can have that entire year booked up. So how do you do that? Well, those are the 3 steps that we're going to be talking about. The first step is called the search, right? This is the time where people are searching for an Airbnb. The next step is called the find. Now, once they find your Airbnb, what do they look at? What happens? And the third step is called the experience. Now that they've booked it, what are they going to experience? So let's talk about, again, the first one, which is called the search, which is the most important. If, for example, you bought a house in Palm Springs, like I'm looking to do now, I'm gonna make sure that I have a pool. Why? Well, because we know around 80 to 90% of people looking in Palm Springs for an Airbnb want a pool. So if you don't have one, you are literally losing 90% of your potential business. And that's just not good, obviously. And if we look at places like Big Bear, we know that a lot of the things that they're looking for are things like fireplaces because it's really cold, maybe a potential skiing spot nearby or sledding spot, or at least having like a nice big cozy open area because again, they're looking for everyone to come hang out in a specific area. Now, every city has something unique about it that people are going there for. So you want to make sure that whatever amenity someone wants that you have, because if you don't, you are basically guaranteeing your failure as an Airbnb host. So if you're scrolling through Airbnb and you type in Palm Springs, you can see right here that there's a button that says amazing pool. So Airbnb already tries to identify high-end pools or nice backyards because they know exactly what people are looking for. If we type in Big Bear, you can see right away at the top left corner here, it says skiing. So Airbnb has its own system that you need to work with to make sure that if people are searching for a home, your home even comes up in the first place, because if it doesn't, that's a guarantee that you're not going to be booking your home. So if someone were to go to the filter button right over here at the top right, and they were to hit 4 bedrooms, well, if you don't have at least 4 bedrooms, again, you are losing those potential customers to even see your home. Now, if you were to have 9 beds, which says 8+ right here, it means that anyone searching for any number of beds will guarantee at least your home will come up. So this is really, really important. Now, you're not going to be able to just remodel your house and create an extra bedroom out of nothing. So for example, if your house has an office that you're using as an office or a library, you could potentially convert that into a bedroom, making it a lot easier for people to search it, because you might be missing out on hundreds of people who are looking for a 5-bedroom instead of a 4-bedroom. So the more bedrooms you have, the more bathrooms you have, the more beds you have, are going to increase the amount of people who potentially might come across your house. Now, if we scroll down, you can see things like Wi-Fi can be checked off, washer and dryer, iron, pool, hot tub, tons of different amenities. And the more of these you have checked off, the more guarantee you have that you're going to pop up on someone's search. Because if there's 500 homes in a given area, maybe only 10 of those homes fit the description, meaning instead of you competing with 500 other people to book this home, you are now competing with only 5 people, making it a lot easier for you to book the house, making sure that you make a lot more money. So this is a simple step you can do. Now, obviously certain ones of these can cost a lot more to do, where you can basically go buy an above ground hot tub for 5 or 10 grand. And a lot of people talk about this in videos, if you search it up on YouTube, where they easily make their money back because they see an increase in amount of people booking their home. Now, pricing is obviously a huge area about this. So if you want to check out some other videos that I'm working on, I'm going to be touring different homes at different price points later on. And this is really important because you want to check out the local competition on your home, right? This is not, again, a rental business where you're just buying a home, getting a renter in there, and you're locked in for a year. you have to gain new customers basically every day. So you have to make sure that your home is priced correctly. So we actually had an instance where we booked this home that we're in right now, and we booked up another home, and they're both the exact same price, but one of them was significantly better than the other, meaning that the other home was not priced correctly, and the average person's probably not gonna book it. Because if I'm looking at two different homes and one of them has a basketball court and the other one doesn't, but everything else is the same, I'm going to be booking the one with the basketball court, even if I don't want it. Right? Why wouldn't you? If you have the option to have something for the exact same price, you're going to be doing that. And that's really, really important when you have an Airbnb business, to make sure that you are well priced. Once they found your home, the next part is called the find, right? They found your home. Now they're going to be reading through the description. They're going to be looking at the photos, and you have to make sure that you have really, really good photos. So again, we'll touch back on the Palm Springs example. When I'm looking at Palm Springs and we search it up, we see a number of the homes that pop up first are ones with photos of the pool first. Because when I'm renting an Airbnb, I really don't care what the outside of the house really looks like. What I care about is the amenities, the inside of the house, and what types of things they have in the backyard, like pool, basketball court, tennis court, whatever it might be. Those are the things that are going to entice me. So for example, in Big Bear, let's say a vast majority of people are looking to sled nearby, and you post a photo of a hill in your backyard where people can sled down. Well, you're probably going to gain a lot more people if you post that photo first versus just like a photo of the front of the house. So this is an easy step, but a crucial one, right? You want to make sure that you're using good photos and good description to entice someone to actually book it. If they've booked it, that's called the experience, which is obviously very self-explanatory. You want to make sure that they've built up an image in their head, and when they get there, that actually that's fulfilled. They don't want to come there and everything is completely different than what it made you seem, and now they don't want to come back, because a lot of the business is making sure that you get good reviews, also making sure that a lot of people want to come back. Because if I visit Big Bear, I'm probably going to be visiting it multiple times every couple of years, maybe every year, maybe even multiple times a year. And why would you want to miss out on those customers? Because if you gain 100 customers and every one of them love the experience, you might potentially gain an extra 15 or 20 people a year who come back every time for the same house. So when thinking about Airbnb in 2023, these are the things that you need to know to make sure it's successful. And these are the types of things that I'm going to be implementing in the Airbnbs that I'm building. So stay tuned, watch my other videos. I'm going to be walking you through all the different processes, and I'm going to be doing different reviews every couple months, every year, to tell you about the market, what's going on, and how Airbnb is competitive and whether it's worth it or not at that time. So as of now, it's still worth it, but you have to make sure to be putting in a lot of work. It's not a passive income business. It's not a regular rental business. This is a hotel business if you want to be successful, rather than just throwing the home up and potentially losing money. So thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions, comment down below and we'll be covering those in the next video.